All right, good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. I'm going to give people a couple minutes here to get situated and join us if they are. Also to make sure the audio is streaming properly. The training lasts approximately an hour and a half, usually a little bit more actually just because of load times. We do record the training, so if you can't stay for the whole time, you can come back and watch the rest of it later. And we also, since we record these, you can also get the link later to also share with staff members who may also need to be admins on the account. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a particular feature as I'm going over it. If necessary, I'll backtrack to cover a question I miss. It's not a big deal. So here we have our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. For most admins or anyone who gets assigned to an ACD queue, I recommend bookmarking this page. Now to log in, we need 3 pieces of information. First is your email address, right? That's your unique identifier. We need your password, and then we need your account name. And that's just because it's possible for a person to have multiple accounts, right? And they could use that email address on their different accounts. Now, if for some reason you don't have that information, like you forgot your password, down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a forgot your info link. And you would click on that, it flips it around. And we still need your email address, right? That's how we find you. And then we need one of the following, right? We don't need both. So we need either the account name, typically your company name, or a phone number that's on the account. Then you would click on reset password, and that will generate an email to you. There'll be a link in that email that allows you to change your password. It will log you out shortly thereafter. If you try to navigate away from the page, it will also log you out. So you want to make sure you change that password. Then you're taken back here, so you can retype in your password, and then you have the option here to click on Remember Me, so that way you don't have to worry about remembering the password in the future. And then you click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I sign into on a regular basis, so by default, the system's going to take me right to the dashboard page. For anyone who's a new sign-up, right, or you just got added to an account, the first time you get logged in, the dash wizard will pop up, and the system will take you at first to your user page or your user profile page. Now, you can always get back to your user profile page by clicking on your name up at the top right. So here, like this would be where I would change my own password. Now, if I was changing someone else's password, I would do that under the Users tab back on the dashboard page. But for your own password, you would click on your name at the top and then click on the password section here. Now, as an admin, I also have access over here on the left under settings to the account level. And the typically thing that's changed here is the time zone and possibly the display language. If you ever need to change your account name, you actually need to contact our billing team. There's several things they have to change on their side to make sure everything syncs up properly. So that's why you can't change it here. But this is where you can also find your account ID information, right, as well as your account realm, right? And those are used in a couple different things. Now, on your accounts, right, you actually have live accounts versus this test account. You would have a billing section here, and currently that will take you to a link that goes to the billing portal where you can update like your billing email address. In terms of updating your billing information currently, you may be able to do that through the billing portal. I haven't had access to that, so I don't know for certain. Or you would have to contact our billing team, right, because they can do most of that over the phone with you. Once you're done here, over here to the top right, you click on close. This will take you back to the dashboard page. Now, that first login attempt, right, Dash Wizard pop-ups will continue here on the dashboard page. They'll also come up on the Users tab over here on the left and the Groups tab. But so here on our dashboard page, so at the top, again, you click on your name at any time, go back to that user page. So to update your own personal password. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right, for Do Not Disturb. My user is part of an ACD queue, which is a different feature, but that feature and the D&D toggle do not work well together. So once I was added to be a member of the queues, the D&D toggle was removed. Right, but for most of you, when you first come up here, there'll be a D&D toggle. When you click on it, it'll turn white. That means it's active, and that means you're not getting calls. Right, like someone dials your extension number, they're going to go right to your voicemail. If someone tries to transfer a call to you, they'll get the person who's transferring will get a message that you're not available. Then we got the little question mark icon, right, for help. Now, 3 of these options will always be here. Right, the 4th one is an optional one that comes up under a particular set of circumstances. So first up, we have chat with us. This will open up the chat window at the bottom right of your browser window and allows you to chat in real time with one of our support team members, right, so they can help you through a particular feature. Learn more. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages. So you can see the guides that we have created. They typically have screenshots, and usually things are highlighted so you know where to look with the directions. Online store. This also opens a new tab and takes you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you would order things like a VoIP phone from us or a router, among other things. And then the optional one, or the one that doesn't always show up, is the web phone. So this will show up after you've added a web phone device to your user. And typically that will show up on your next login most of the time. Once you've added this and you click on it, it opens a new tab and takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Right? So it is a VoIP device. It only works on the desktop version of those browsers. Right? The mobile versions of Chrome and Firefox are not supported, so it may or may not work. There's no guarantee. Right, next, we have the hamburger icon or the 3 horizontal line icon, right? Menu icon. Those are the 3 things we typically refer to it as. This takes you to other Dash features. For the majority of the training, we'll be here on the dashboard, right? This first option on the left, but we will touch on these others as we go through. And then lastly, this arrow to the right, that's the logout icon. Now here in the center of our page, we've got total users. I have 24 users. Right, these are people who make and receive calls. Many of our plans are based on a per user basis, right? So increasing the number of users may increase your bill. So that's something to be aware of. If you just signed up, you can check the pricing page to see how that would impact you. If you're on an older plan, you may need to contact our account services team to verify what the per user cost is. Next, I have total devices. I have 42 devices on my account here. And then we have a breakdown. So first up here, soft phone, software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? So these are VoIP devices, right? If you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, right? Just uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So this soft phones, I have 20 of them. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app or any other soft phone app you might be using, right? So Xlite from Counterpath, so typical example. Down next, I have the web phone. I have 8 of these, right? So that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. Web phone is technically a kind of soft phone, right? Because a browser is software, but this was developed later, so that's why it has a separate bucket. Next, we have a SIP phone, right? This is a hardware phone, right? So a piece of hardware sitting on someone's desk. Typically has an Ethernet cable connecting from the phone to your router to get to your internet. In terms of VoIP phones, right? So VoIP is a general term, right? Covers a wide variety of subtypes. SIP is a subtype of VoIP phone. It's I always forget what it stands for. It's like Session Interface Protocol or something like that. There are other kinds of protocols that VoIP phones could use. So when you're shopping, you want to make sure you're looking for a SIP compliant or SIP compatible phone. Right? And then the next kind of device I have on the account are cell phones. Pretty self-explanatory. Down here, I have unregistered devices. I have two, which is in reference to my SIP phones, right? Those physical phones. That could be two of them are unplugged, right? Or someone just moved and they haven't set up their network yet, so there might be some router settings involved. It could be someone's having someone's ISP is having an outage, right? At this point, our system doesn't know. It just knows we can't send calls to two of those devices. Next, I have total numbers. I have 32 phone numbers on my account, right? Every account includes some number of phone numbers included as part of your monthly price. Once you go over that allotment, the typical pricing is $1.99 per phone number per month. Again, that's for the current plans. If you're on an older plan, you'd want to double check with our services team to verify what that is for you and how many numbers are included. Then I have two breakdowns. First is assigned numbers and spare number. So an assigned number, I'm using it, right? Someone can dial that number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax, right? There's some way to connect or communicate. Spare number, right, counts towards my allotment of phone numbers, but I'm not currently using it. So for instance, let's say in the United States, I'm about to launch my Thanksgiving promotion, right, or my Black Friday promotion, right? So I want to wait till after Thanksgiving to make that phone number live because I don't want people calling me about something that's not active yet, right? That's why I would have a spare number. Or, a more, year-round kind of example would be like you're expanding into a new market, right? So new area code and with a physical storefront, for example. So you're like, hey, I'm going to get a number in, city B, right? So I have a proper area code, and I can make sure I can get the marketing materials and whatever signage ready with that phone number ahead of time. Right. Next breakdown here is USDID and US toll free. US toll free is actually US Canada toll free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So if you have a number in San Jose, California versus a number in Chicago, Illinois, right? Those both count as USDID numbers. You can have international phone numbers. If you are so inclined, you would want to email our porting team at porting@virtualpbx.com. They will need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They will then confirm if we can get a number for you in that location and if there are any additional requirements, usually documentation of some kind. It is that country's policies that determine those requirements. That's not something we control. Conference bridges, I have 3. That means I've enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference on 3 of my users. And that's it. And that's all that's there for. Over here to the top right, I have my main number block, right? I have these 6 phone numbers here. These phone numbers all behave in the same fashion, right? So they're all going to the same location. They're all playing the same main greeting. Then I have my conference room numbers. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want. They're all going to the same set of conference rooms, right? And this number is the number everyone dials to join the conference, right? Whether they're your clients, your vendors, or your staff members, they would all dial this phone number first, and then they'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and PIN number. Right, and that information you or your staff would send to your clients or vendors so they know the proper numbers to enter. Fax box number, this is your inbound fax number. Right, you can have the one main fax box number. It just allows you to accept faxes. Then we've got the company directory. This downloads a CSV file, shows your extension numbers, your staff members' names, and their devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So for use on Windows or Mac OS devices, you would download this file and then upload it to your VirtualPBX soft phone app on your computer. And this will allow you to see the presence or status of the other soft phones on your account, or the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account. Right? So if everyone in your organization uses the VirtualPBX soft phone as their only device, right, then you know who's on a call and who's not. Now, if your staff members have a mix of devices, right, then you can only see if their soft phone's in use, right? So if my coworker Mike is on a call with his J-Link phone, I'm not going to be able to see that from my soft phone. So I could call him and he could say, hey, I'm on my other phone, call me back. Or just let it go to voicemail. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a code for use in our online store, right? That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then here we have the account realm, right? Each account has its own account realm. You use this for a couple of things. One, if you're going to use a third-party soft phone, this is one of the pieces of information you would use to program or provision that device. The other thing it's used for is to send a fax out. So on Dash, to send a fax out, you actually don't need to be logged into your Dash account. You do, however, need to use your email that is associated with your user. You would create an email like you normally do, but instead of sending an email to your cousin Bob, in the to field, right, you remove Bob's email address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, little @ symbol, and then you put in your account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment. It does not send anything that's in the subject line of the email. It does not send anything that's in the body of the email. It just sends the attachment. One attachment per email. Again, you want to make sure that's a PDF or a TIFF file. All right. Over here, we have the caller ID button at the top here. This I'll actually expand out, open up this big box. Now, unfortunately, this first pull down doesn't work well on my streaming software, but this pull down lets you select any of your main numbers, right? So that main number block. So there'd be 6, in this case, on this account, there'd be 6 numbers to choose from. You select one of them to be your default number, right? This is be the default number for all of your VoIP phones when they make an outbound call, for example. This field here, the company caller ID name or CNAME, this is optional. But in the box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters, including spaces or special characters, that we will then send out as part of your outbound caller ID. Down below here, next section, you have the company emergency information, or E911. System wants a North American address. And then you click on Save Changes at the bottom. Now, if you entered information here in the company caller ID name, after you click on Save Changes, this information gets sent to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their servers, right? So it's possible, like if you updated this today, right, and you made an app ball count on your VoIP phones, your CNAME information will probably not be sent out. Now, for CNAME, it's 2 parts. One, there's provisioning. That's what we do, right? We're saying, hey, we're setting this information out. However, whoever you're calling on the other side, right, their provider can choose to accept the inbound CNAME that we're sending. They can instead choose to look up the phone number themselves and use their own database and whatever is associated there and display that on the phones on their network, or just choose not to send CNAME information at all. They're saying, hey, just the phone number. That's not something we can control, right? We can't make other companies do things. This is also mostly problematic for when you're calling cell phones, right? The cell phone providers themselves don't generally participate in CNAME. In general, these cell phone providers will want to charge their subscribers to have that ability, right? So when I looked this up, my provider, they wanted to charge me $10 a month to have company information show up as part of the inbound caller ID when calls come to my cell phone. I felt I feel like I pay enough to my cell phone provider, so I didn't sign up for that feature. And I'm guessing that's a common feeling among most people. All right, this next button here, hold music. So your Dash account, you can upload your own media files. Right, the system will play back .wave, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono and that they're under 1 MB in file size. Right now, if you already have media files here, you can use the pull down here to select a media file you already have. Hold on just a minute here. Right, when you click the upload button, you can give the file a name, right, how you want it to display on your Dash account. You would click on the browse button to find an MP3 or WAV or OGG file. Then you click on the up arrow icon. After it finishes uploading, then you click on Save Changes. Now, Hours is another button, but it's actually part of main number. So over here on the left, I'm just going to click on main number, and we'll work our way down. First section, main company numbers, right, shows all your main numbers. Now, if you decide you don't want to use a number any longer, right, you would click Unassign next to it. Now, I have not deleted that phone number from my account, right? I've just made it a spare number now. So I could reuse it for something else, for example, right? I could assign it to one of my staff members so they can have a direct phone number. Down here at the bottom, you have the option here to add from spare or buy new, right? So add from spare means you're reusing a number, right? Or you're grabbing one of your available phone numbers and putting it someplace, right? And you would just click on the box in front of it and click on Add Selected, and then it would show up here. Right. Buy numbers, this means you're adding new numbers to your account. So like say, for instance, your account includes up to 5 phone numbers and you only have 1. When you click on buy numbers, you're not being charged anything, right? It's just adding a number to your account. You have options here for local or toll-free. We'll start with toll-free. Choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Click on search. And the system will display a list of available numbers, assuming there are available numbers. And then you can scroll down and see which numbers you like. Click add next to any of them that you want. You can add multiple at once if you want to. Now, this list of numbers is a dynamic list, right? So you're technically competing with other people to get these phone numbers. So once you add numbers to your cart, once you're done adding numbers, you want to click on buy. This verifies that that number was truly available, and then it's adding it to your account. Like for instance, if I added this number to my cart and then my boss said, hey, I need you in a meeting, and I come back to this an hour later, it's possible someone else took this number while I was in my meeting, right? So you want to click buy to finish the process to make sure you get the number that you wanted. Right? Just adding it into your cart does not reserve it in any fashion. And it's taking a little bit to add that number. That's always some variability when it comes to adding the numbers. And there we go. Or almost, there we go. And the new numbers here. Okay, local numbers. This, you need to know the area code. Right, so you would come here, do a search for an area code, click on the search button, and you can get, for any area code, including the toll-free area codes, right, you can get this message. And that's just saying, this area code does not have any readily available phone numbers, right? It's exhausted. 310 is a Los Angeles-based area code. You may need to use Google to look, and what I would suggest is, do a search for area code 310 overlay, right? And you would then go back to search on this page, and you would, when you Google that, you'll be notified that area code 424 is an overlay for 310. What that means is these two area codes share the same geographic boundaries, right? So people living in this area, they have to do 10-digit dialing, which is fairly common for most people in the US these days. But you can see here, there are plenty of 424 numbers available. I can scroll down and look for some more. Same process though, right? Click add to the cart, click buy, and then the system adds it to the account. And that one's a little bit faster. That's good. Now, you see a little gear icon here and these other icons. So for each phone number, you can adjust the caller ID, right? So you can give it a CNAM for each phone number. So you can make sure all your numbers have the same CNAM, for example. And you have the ability to turn on to accept inbound CNAM information, right? So the CNAM information shows up on your staff members' phones. E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address. This also then allows you to assign your VoIP phones to a specific phone number to have a specific address, right? And that's and that is for E911 only, right? They can have, so technically a VoIP phone can have an outbound caller ID phone number and then a separate phone number and address associated it for 911 purposes, right? And that way you can have, when someone dials that VoIP phone, the correct address is sent to emergency services. That's the main point of that. And then the other thing that comes up is prepend. This is a VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff member's phone, so it can give them a heads up about what the call might be about. You can obviously have multiple main numbers if you want. I'm going to go ahead and unassign these two that I just added, just to make my number list a little bit cleaner. All right, next up we have office hours strategy. You have 24-hour open office, right? So you're open 24/7. Or you have custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of that day. These boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. If you're not checked, then you're closed. Down here at the bottom, you have the option here to say if you're closed for lunch or not. And that just means your system would go into lunch mode at a particular time that you set. Right, and then you would click on Save Changes, which I think on YouTube gets cut off, so I apologize for that. Then we have office holidays, right? So if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then you have the option to add holiday over here to the right, single day, date range, or advanced. Each one of these creates a new row. And then you would give it a name, right? Then you just choose the month and the date. You click on Save Changes. Right, date range, like I have down here for Xmas break, right? Give it a name, start date, end date, save changes. As a precaution, because there's no year indicator on these holidays, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. That's why I have one of each here as a single day. You can even have a date range end on New Year's Eve and then another date range start on New Year's Day. That is typically fine. But again, it's a precaution just to make sure the system doesn't behave oddly. Advanced is like I have here for Thanksgiving. You give it a name, you choose the month. This site pull down, it's 1st through 5th as well as last. And then you choose the day of the week and then save changes. If you want to get rid of a holiday, right, you would just click on the little trash can icon here to the right, confirm, and then you click on Save Changes. Incoming call handling. So this is how your main numbers, right? So those 5 phone numbers I have at the top here, how do they act during my open hours? I have a tab for my after hours, and how do they act during my holidays. Now, the options are basically the same across those timestamps, right? If you're closed for lunch, you would have a lunch hours tab. But first option here, call comes in, goes to your virtual receptionist, right, or auto attendant. You click on the virtual receptionist, it's a link and it opens it up here. So on the left, this is your main menu, right? So this is what people can press on their phone to navigate through your phone system, right? So like 1 for sales, 2 for support, etc. Down here, you would click on add route. That gives you another menu option. Now this first pull down, you have 0 through 9 plus the star key and then the default action. And then the second pull down is where you want those options to go, right? Smart PBX directory, right? User directory, dial by name directory. You can have it go to a particular person, right? So one of your staff members. A call queue if you're making use of ACD queues, which is an upgrade feature, right? Groups, department. So both queues and groups are designed to go to multiple people. Groups are an included feature and have fairly simple routing options, right? Basically, you can ring an order or ring everybody. Queues have more advanced routing options. That's why it's an upgrade feature, which has a fee associated per queue. You can have a menu option go to a specific phone. This isn't always recommended because like if the phone does not have a built-in voicemail, right, like most VoIP devices, then you're relying on the inbound caller to either hang on until someone picks up or to hang up when they get tired of it. And then you also have menu options to go to a voicemail box, right? So press the menu option to leave a message. You can also go to a media file, which you would do to say, for like hours of operation or directions. However, once that media file stops playing, the call ends. Lastly, you have advanced call flows. This would only show up in a couple of cases. Right. One is if your account includes multiple auto attendants and you made one or more of your secondary attendants available in your main menu. You would do that for what's called submenuing. Right. Classic example of submenuing is press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, right? 3 for Chinese, right? Each one of those menu options, right, goes to another auto attendant that has a greeting in its relevant language, and then the menu options would go to staff members who speak that language. The other reason you would have an advanced call flow is if you have the DISA feature enabled, which is direct inward system access, or if our services team had a custom call flow created for you, right? An advanced configuration. All right. Then over here on the right, first up, we have your greetings. So the greeting is where you say thank you for calling. You usually put your business or organization name. And then you give directions, right? You're telling your customers what to press to get to where. Now, first option, text-to-speech. You can type in your greeting here, and the system will play it back in a computerized or robotic voice. You can use up to 250 characters in this text-to-speech greeting, not words, characters. It does not count spaces. I have had at times where I've gotten over 250 characters, but 250 works consistently. Now, when you create a text-to-speech greeting, right, after you click update, save, and save changes, the system doesn't let you choose a file name for it. It creates one for you. In this case, it would be my main, right, because it's my main menu, right, open hours, menu, and then TTS, right? Now, let's say I call in and I listen to it and I forgot like a menu option. So I type in some more, right? I click update, save, and save changes. Now I'm going to have 2 files that are called main open hours menu TTS. So my recommendation is if you're making use of a text-to-speech greeting, after you create that first one, and I'll close this out real quick. Over here on the left, click on greetings, and you can edit the file and change the name, right? Just at the very least, call it main greeting 1. So you know it's the first one you created in case you need to change it later. And then you make main greeting 2, etc. Next option, you can upload your own file, right? You can give it a name. You can choose the file, .wave.mp3.ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. You click update, save, and save changes. Next step, you can choose from an existing recording, right? This pull down, I already have main open hours menu TTS. Now, if I have multiple of these, I don't know which one is which, right? That's why if you're going to make use of text-to-speech, change the name. So that way from any pull down where a media file comes into play, you can easily tell which one you're working with. You can record your main greeting over the phone. Now, the system here says pick up a phone registered to the account. That means this system wants you to use a VoIP phone, right? This is a security feature, basically saying, hey, the system knows when a VoIP phone is registered to the account, meaning it's a known device, right? So it's like, oh, this is a device on my system. It's okay for it to create a main greeting. If you don't want to do that, or let's say, for instance, you've ordered VoIP phones and they haven't arrived yet, but you want to make your main greeting in place, what you would want to do is then come down to settings, and this one here where it says allow outside recording, turn this on. So now you can call in from any phone to your main number and record a main greeting over the phone. Right? Doesn't have to be a VoIP phone on your account any longer. Now, you're still going to need this PIN number. This PIN number is only good during this time of day, right? So I'm in my main open hours. That means this PIN number is only good during my open hours, right? If I call after 5 p.m., right, that's when I'm in after hours mode, this PIN number will stop working, right? So I can only change my open hours greeting over the phone during my open hours. Now, if you just signed up with us and you called your main number right off the bat, that first time you call in, right, the system will say, the greeting for this menu has not been created yet. And then it will prompt you to enter your PIN number. Right, that's to help you get set up. Now, if you've already have a greeting in place, but then you got feedback from your customers that the robotic voice was, off-putting, or they weren't sure they were calling you, right, because they're used to hearing your voice. You could call in even with a greeting in place, right? When you hear that main greeting play, you can enter in your PIN number. The system will recognize it and then put you into or give you the steps to record a new greeting over the phone. However, you're not given an opportunity to give it a file name. So if you have like my main open hours menu TTS file here is currently playing. If I called in over the phone, entered my PIN number, and I recorded a new greeting over the phone, I overwrote the content of main open hours menu TTS. It's now going to be in my voice and whatever I said, but the file name is still the same. That's more problematic as we get closer to like Christmas and New Year's, where people sometimes forget to change their greeting, and then they rush and replace their normal main greeting with a holiday greeting. Right? We don't have both copies. We only have the one copy at that point, so we lost the original data. All right, professional recording services. When you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, different versions of English, Spanish, and French, as well as bilingual options, hold music options. They charge you via credit card, right? They do their own billing. They send you the file via email, and then you would just come here to upload your own file. I would expect that sometime soon that Snap Recordings would start having promotions, at least they have for the last few years. So worth checking to see if they have a promotion running. All right, next up we have settings. First, we have number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. Right, so they have one built-in opportunity, right? Right, and then in this case, I give them one retry, right? So caller comes in, they press menu option 7. Well, there isn't one defined. So the system says, oh, that's a mistake. And then it would play the greeting again to give that inbound caller a second opportunity, right? That their one retry. And then they can hit another menu option. Now, the dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for a second button press, right? So that caller calls in, they press menu option 7, the system waits for 1 second, waiting to see if they're going to enter in additional digits for an extension number. Then it says, oh, nope, just 7, no menu option, retry, right? Greeting plays again. Person presses 7 again, waits 1 second. At that point, one of two things can happen. If you have a default action on that second attempt, in this particular scenario, calls would go to the default action, right? So my PBX directory. If I don't have a default action on that second attempt, the system would say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, right? And end the call, right? So that means the person will have to call back. All right, we covered allowed outside recording already. Allowed dialing extensions. By default, this is on. And that just means when people call in, if they know the extension number, the system will treat it like a valid entry and transfer the call. If I turn this off, that means my inbound callers can only press my menu options, right? They enter an extension number, the system treats it as an invalid option, right? Counts as towards their retry attempts. And then we have to suppress the playing of the invalid entry message, right? So if you don't want your customers to hear, we did not recognize your entry, right? That message, you would then turn this on. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you need to click save down here. It takes you back to incoming call handling, and then you need to click save changes here. So you're clicking save twice. All right, next up, whoops. Second option here, this is your live operator answer option, right? So the idea here is you're giving a staff member, or in this case, right, a group of staff members, an opportunity to answer the call first. If they're not able to pick up, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. Now, this is my after hours, so I have a different menu option, right? I would probably have a different greeting play. I can have different settings. Right. Now, this is a pull down. You normally would select users, queues, or groups. Potentially, you would have select a device, right? So you have a specific phone that you want to ring first. And then, but in all those cases, right, if people don't answer, then it goes to your virtual receptionist. So your inbound caller can enter a menu option or an extension number. Right. Third option here, you can offer it to a user, a group, a queue, a device, even a media file if you want it to. And then the call goes to a voicemail box you designate from this list down here. Right. So like in my holidays, you also have on this first pull down option, the last option here is skip to voicemail. We're just saying, hey, send calls straight to this voicemail box. Right. So this is something some of our customers may do coming up at the end of this week for Thanksgiving. Right? They say, nope, just send everything to voicemail. We'll handle it when we get back in on the office on Monday. Now, this fourth option, right, only shows up if you have multiple auto attendants and one of them is available, at least one of them is available in main menu, or our services team created an advanced call flow for you. Otherwise, most of you will only have these first three options. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers, right? So you can add from spare or add, or buy new ones to add new numbers to the account. You also have the option here, right, to create a custom greeting. However, it's a text-to-speech greeting, right? So 250 characters. You would click save. Even if you don't have a custom greeting in place, when you call the conference number, this system says welcome to the conference, prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and PIN number. Main fax box number, you can only have the one, so right, permission to add new ones or spare numbers. You have the edit fax box option here. You click edit. You have two fields, right? The first one is your inbound fax notification email address. So this email address that's here, anytime an inbound fax comes in, they get an email. right? It has the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment, right? So they can look at the fax that came through. Now, your fax number is a phone number, right? So someone could dial it from their cell phone, right? Usually when people dial a fax number from a phone and they hear those fax tones, they hang up. That's still going to generate an email to this person, and it's going to be you had a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, there's some caller ID information that's included in that email notification. So if you see things like wireless caller, you can assume that that was a misdial. The inbound fax attempts would also show up in your call log. So if you see in your call log calls going to your fax number, but they're under 45 seconds, that's not long enough to even send a page through. Right? It's roughly 45 seconds per page, give or take. The second field here is for your email permissions. This is for outbound faxing. This field is designed to put your company email domain here. So basically everyone at VirtualPBX, they can send a fax out on this account. They don't have to be a user on my account, right? They just have to have an email address at virtualpbx.com and then the proper format. All right, auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So it's available on some plans and not others. A couple use cases, right? The first I've already talked about, which is for submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish, etc. The other use case is if you have multiple businesses and you want them on the same account, right? So your other businesses would have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings, but you can have the same staff people answer calls for all of your extra businesses. Up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant. You give it a name, right? And then give it an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers necessarily would know, but it would allow your staff members to transfer calls from one business to the other, right? With just entering the extension number. And then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. Now, it will default new attendants to be unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant or designed to be its own business. Right? If you click on this, it flips it to say available in main menu, right? So now it's a sub-menu option, right? So like you can make it say, if instead of what had a language name, like I have up here for, or down here for Spanish, right? That would be a sub-menu option. Attendants can have their own phone numbers. They can have multiple, right? So you can add from spare or buy new. That little gear icon here, so you can update the E911 or prepend, etc. Now, the attendants need to have at least one extension number, but you can have multiple if you want. Up to you. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. I have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This will match what we set up under main number, right? So if you have multiple businesses, by default, they all have to have the same hours of operation, right? So if you have a business that's 24/7 and other businesses that are like Monday to Friday, then you'd want to talk to our account services team for your options, right? It's possible with custom work, we could still put your accounts on, your multiple businesses on one account, or it might be more feasible to have multiple accounts, and normally they'll work out a deal for you in that kind of scenario. But beyond that, right, you only have the option here for calls to go to the virtual receptionist during these times. So you set up your menu options, your greetings, your settings. You would click Save, and then Save Changes. Devices, this shows your devices on the account. A red device means it's unregistered. So in the case of a web phone or a soft phone, that could be they're not simply logged into the application yet. Right? For a physical phone like this Cisco device here, that could be it's not plugged in. In any of the red phones devices, it could also be a network problem. Right? There could be a router setting that they need to adjust, or an ISP outage. Right? Green device like I have here, that means it's registered so we can send calls to it. Up at the top, you can add device. SIP phone, this is that physical hardware. You can choose from these manufacturers. right? Some of them have a lot of models, some of them not as many. But in all cases, right, you're looking for the make and model. You select your model, you give it a device name. I normally say use the person's first name in the word phone, right? So Bob's phone, or its location, like shipping phone, right? Then you need the MAC address. This is unique to each device, right? It's going to be a sticker on the back of the phone or at the bottom of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, typically under its status or basic settings, you will also display the MAC address. You would enter that information here. You would click on Create Device. Once the device is created, click the little wrench icon here. Go to Advanced, Miscellaneous, and click on Unlock. And then Save Changes. So that tells the system that you're about to provision the system. The next step you would do would go over to Users and click on their Devices box, right, and Add from Spare Devices, right? You would add that device to the user. In terms of our dashboard, at that point, you're done. However, you need to log into that phone's user interface, right, usually based off a web page. You need to tell or give that phone the URL for auto provisioning. We have a document on our support pages called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers, as well as a proper syntax for that URL, because it's a little different for each of the manufacturers. There may be some other settings to double check. But basically the point is you get to the auto provisioning page, you get to the URL, you tell the phone, you confirm or update or save that change. The phone will then to that URL, download its configuration file. It will reboot usually a couple times, but after it's done, it should show up as a green device. Cell phone and landline are the same, where you give it a device name, right? Like Angela's phone. And then you type in the number, +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, no parentheses, no dashes, just +1 area code and number. And then you click on Create Device. We'll go way down here. Right, so this is a represent or sample, right? So I call it demo device. Here's +1 area code and phone number. If I go to the advanced options, right, this is the standard setup or the default setup for a new cell phone or landline. In terms of how Dash handles calls to these devices, right? Call comes in, hits your user, goes to your cell phone. Your cell phone rings. When you pick up, you're going to hear a message. This is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there. Yes, you want to take this call, right? It then connects that inbound caller to you, and you can begin speaking, right? That works great for calls going to your actual cell phone. But let's say, for instance, you've contracted out to an automated answering service to handle your after-hours calls. That service gives you a phone number, say, just for your after-hours calls, send your callers to this phone number. Well, that phone number you could add as a device on your Dash account, right? You just go here, add that answering service phone number here. However, because it's an automated answering service, right, that means it doesn't know when to press 1. So initially, calls would fail, right? We would be sending out, but we wouldn't get a pickup. So what you would want to do is this first option here, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, click in front of it to put a check mark. So now when we send a call to this phone number, when we hear a pickup tone, we connect the call, right? There's no message about this is a forwarded call. There's no need to press 1, right? The system hears pickup tone, connects the call. So now your answering service can answer the call. Great for automated answering service. You could also leave this in place if this is your personal cell phone, right? That just means if your cell phone voicemail picks up, that inbound caller ends up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. The other thing to keep in mind is when we offer that call to your cell phone, by default, this setting here, we're showing you that inbound caller's phone number, right? So customer Mary is calling to your system, reaches your cell phone. On your cell phone's display, customer Mary's phone number. Now, if you've been getting hit with lots of robodialers, or you're tired, like in the US, you just recently had elections, right? So you're just tired of all the calls you were getting. If you don't recognize the number, you may just let it go to voicemail. Like, nope, not dealing with this right now. Maybe you're able to, connect with customer Mary and complete the sale. Maybe not. So what you could do is uncheck this. So now when a call comes to your cell phone, instead of it being that person's phone number that shows up, it's your main number that shows up. Right? We go back to the dashboard here, hopefully quickly. Caller ID, right? So this 408 number, this is what would show up on my cell phone. So that way I would hopefully recognize my main business number and be willing to take that call. Right, soft phone, if you add a soft phone device on devices page, or actually anywhere, right, it's going to come up with this warning message. Then you click close. I do recommend at least reading that at least once. But here on the devices page, when you add a soft phone, you can only add a third-party device, right? So if you wanted to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone, you don't want to add your soft phone here. You want to add that to your users directly. But here, this would be like if you're going to use Xlite from Counterpath, right? You would give it a name. You would copy and paste a SIP username. Click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password, so then you can copy and paste it. And then you would copy the realm and you paste that into your soft phone app. Other things to look at, if you click on the wrench icon here, audio for software, right? So soft phones, you want to have Opus as the codec. For hardware, right, physical phones, you'd want G711A and G711U, right? These two. Right, so Opus is for software. These other two are for hardware. Right, so this is a soft phone, so I would want to just leave it as Opus. The emergency E911, right? You can select one of your other phone numbers and whatever address you have associated with it. This phone number doesn't have an address right now, otherwise it would show up here. But that's why you can have the different addresses for your staff members based on their actual location. Right, greetings tab, right? Shows all your various media files on your account. You see the file name. The source is like TTS means text to speech, right? Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means you recorded it over the phone. You have a play icon here, so you can listen to messages on your browser. If for some reason it doesn't play back, just to the right, you have a download. So we can download the file to your device and listen to it that way. Wrench icon, you can click on it. You can change the file so it's something you would recognize. And then you would click on Save Changes, or if you don't need it, you click on Delete to get rid of the greeting. Groups, sometimes referred to as hunt groups or ring groups. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. You click and drag your staff members that you want to be part of the group. And then you would click on Create Group. Once a group is created, right, you can always click on its name to change the name. And then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to the members of the group. There's little arrows here to the far right, so you can click on that to adjust that. You can also delete the group if you no longer need it. Any changes, click on Save Changes. Next step is the members box. So here are my staff members who are assigned to this group, and this is their ringing setup, routing setup, right? So in this case, I'm having, when a call comes in, it's ringing all of my staff members at the same time until one of them picks up. Right, now, along the top here, these are timestamps, right? This last one you can edit. New groups default to 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. Now, if you want the calls to ring in order, you just click and distribute. So it starts with Bob at 0 seconds, right? Then Aaron, then Peter, etc. Something to keep in mind though, the system does not skip a user, right? So call comes in to Bob, he's helping that customer. Second call comes in, that second call still tries to ring Bob, even though he's already on a call for 24 seconds here, and then it would go to Aaron, right? So let's say now there's 2 calls in, handling, and a third call comes in. That third call has to wait 48 seconds before it goes to Peter. Right? So during your busy times of year, you might want to have a little bit of overlap, so that way those later callers don't have to wait quite so long to get to somebody. Now, if you want to change the order, let's say Bob has a project that it's high priority, but he still needs to be part of the group because that's his normal job. You can click and drag and bring him to the bottom. Now, he's still at 0 seconds, right? But you can click and drag other people around. Now you can click distribute. So now David is first. So he's always getting calls. Bob is last, right? So he's the last one in the order. Now, down here at the bottom, you can always add new people. Right? And then you can click distribute again. And let's say I still want Bob to be at the end. So now Bob has a little bit more leeway, right, for other people to answer calls. Something to keep in mind about calls that come to a user from a group. So let's say Bob's got multiple devices. When a call rings to him from the group, all of his phones will ring. There's a user feature called Follow Me. Calls from the group ignore that feature. It's still going to ring all his phones. Right? Groups have to have extensions. They can have multiple if you want them to. Groups can have their own phone numbers. Now, this phone number on a group or even on a user, or basically anywhere that's not a main number or auto attendant, does not have hours of operation. Right? So your main number, your auto attendant phone numbers, those phone numbers always have hours of operation. Right? Anything else, right? Any other phone number anywhere else on your system is available 24/7. Right? Doesn't have after hours, does not have holidays. Then we have group features. First is ringback. So call comes into the group, gets sent to your staff members. By default, when your staff member's phone starts to ring, that ringing sound is piped back to your inbound caller, right? That's ringback. Now, if you don't want that ringing sound to come back to your inbound caller, right, you can choose to enable ringback and then upload a media file, right, .wav, .mp3, .ogg recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, or choose from a selected file like I have in this case, right? Don't worry, be happy. And then save changes. So now when a call comes into my group, as long as that ringing sound is being sent back to my inbound caller, instead of the ringing sound, they're going to hear, don't worry, be happy. Now, if for some reason I'm not getting that ringing sound from my staff members' phones, my inbound caller is going to hear nothing. Usually that's because we got a busy tone. But if you have multiple devices being rung, right, that usually won't be a problem. Next action, to me, this is the most important group feature. Click to enable. And this is, if no one answers call, what do you want the system to do with it? Pull down here so you can send it to back to your main menu. You can send it to one of your other groups. You can send it to a specific phone, a specific user, or to a specific voicemail box, or even an ACD queue if you have them. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're allowing your users to make use of call forwarding. If your users already have multiple devices, you probably don't need to have that enabled. Caller ID prepend, if you enable this, this allows you to put text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' phones. Right? The idea here is to give your staff members an idea what the call might be about. Right? So if they have multiple roles or they're in multiple groups, right, that can be helpful. Numbers tab. It starts you off on your numbers in use, and it shows you where your numbers are assigned. Now, it doesn't tell you exactly where, right? It's possible you could have a staff member have multiple phone numbers assigned to them. You don't know if it's on their user or there's like they have a fax box. You have a little gear icon here, so you can adjust the caller ID, E911, or prepend for any phone number. You can't unassign a number here or assign a number here. This is just lets you know where it's currently associated. Your spare numbers tab, right? So this shows your list of numbers that you're not currently using. If you decide you no longer want the numbers on the account, you click on the box in front, and now the option to delete shows up. So you click here, confirm the deletion, and now I have less phone numbers on my account. If you buy numbers, right, local or spare, you'd just be adding them as additional spare numbers. Port starts your port process. All right, you would give it a name, choose local or toll free. Then the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill within the last 30 days. It's going to ask you for some information like the address, the phone numbers involved. You'll have an opportunity to download a blank letter of agency and then upload a completed and signed LOA, or letter of agency. It does need to be signed, whether that's a digital signature or you printed it out and signed it yourself and scanned it back in, right? Typing your name in twice or printing your name will not work. It will get rejected and delays your port request. Toll-free numbers typically take about 3 to 5 business days if everything is correct. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes they can be much quicker. Like I've had it as quickly as the next business day. If there's a problem, right, we double check to make sure there wasn't some sort of typo, or if in the case of like an address, we double check if there's a different address involved, right? Like so on your LOA, you put one address, but your bill copy has a different address for you. You would try both addresses to see if one would go through. If that doesn't work, then we would let you know, hey, we got a rejection for this reason. You need to check with the current carrier to find out what the correct information is. Users tab, this is where you would see your users and add more users. The people with the gray people icon, right, that's your standard users. People with the blue suit, these are your system admins, right? So they can do all the things we've been talking about. Up at the top, you click add user, you fill out the form. The main thing to know is that the email address used for login is unique for each user, right? You cannot reuse email addresses. The other thing to know is that email address used for login is how the system communicates with the user, right? That's the email address that the system would send password resets to or voicemail notifications to. Right? You create a password for the user and you can enter the extension number for the user. Right? The system will suggest an extension number based on your existing extensions, but you don't have to follow that. You can enter what you want. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for the user. That's intrinsically tied to the user, so we generally recommend keeping that intact. Here's your option to have the user be included in the user directory. You can change that at any time. Send emails to an alternate address. You click here, you can put in a different email address here. So this is, instead of having your voice, the voicemail notifications going to the email address used for login, you instead want them to go to a different address. It's not sending it to both, it's sending it completely to this other address, right? So it ignores the email address used for login for everything but logging in. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. I feel that's kind of important. If you only need to add one user, you click on create user. If you're adding multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name here and you can change their details, right? You can change their name. If you click on change credentials, you can change their email address or their password. You can also send them the password reset email. You can change their voicemail box PIN number if necessary. Right, here's your option to send alternate address. Right, here's your option to include or not include in the user directory. Little person icon here. This is where you change a user into an admin or an admin to user. Time zone, you just do a search for their major US city. The flag here, that's the display language for the web pages for this user. You have English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout, the default is 20 seconds. In this case, it's grayed out because this user has the follow me feature enabled. And then default extension. Right. Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Right. Users can have their own phone numbers. Right. You can add from spare or buy new. They can have 5 phone numbers if you want them to, whatever. Again, like in groups, this phone number is available 24/7. Devices, right? This is where you would add devices to a user. new device, spare device, etc. If we go down to here, for soft phone, right, you still get that warning message. On the user page here, we have this other option that just popped up here. It says use third-party application. So it defaults to say, hey, if you adding a soft phone, even on the user page, it's going to start you off as saying you're using a third-party application. You click on that, and now it says use VirtualPBX application. You give the device a name. You click on create device, right? That will close the window, and then you would click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Ariel here would get an email with the login information for the soft phone, as well as download links. The other thing is I find it personally easier to add any device directly to a user, but the other one you would also want to do on the, for sure, is the web phone. The web phone uses the user's login information, right? So you would give it a device name, click on create device, save changes, and now it would then have Ariel's user information to work with in terms of logging in. Right? Just adding the web phone on the devices page means it's not going to work until you assign it to a user anyway. User features, caller ID number only works when a user that has their own phone number. When you turn it on, you select one of their phone numbers. That phone number becomes their outbound caller ID, right? Instead of the main company number. Virtual text, this is a new feature. When you enable it, assuming it loads, right? So you turn it on to enable, you set the phone number, either a main number, auto attendant number, or a phone number that's assigned to the user. You click on save changes. When you do that, the user gets an email saying welcoming them to virtual text. They can then log into virtualtext.app in a browser, or they can download the virtual text app to their cell phone. They can then text, right? They can test customers, receive text from customers. The main advantage of virtual text is the ability to share numbers among your staff members, like for your main number. So that way you have multiple staff keep an eye on chat conversations with your customers. Voicemail box. This is the default settings for voicemail. If you're on an older plan, transcription was a plan-specific feature. So you'd want to double check with our services team. If you enable it, basically the system listens to the voicemail messages and tries to type it out to the best of its ability in the email notification. Now, by default, the system is going to send you an email. It's going to have the date, the time, phone numbers involved, the extension number, and then an MP3 attachment. So you can just double click and listen to it. Now, if you have transcription involved, you'll have some additional text in the body of the email where the system is trying to listen to or type out that transcription. If people do not speak into their microphone properly, or there's a lot of background noise that their microphone picked up, then that's going to impact the transcription. But you have the voicemail attachment, so you can double check and listen to it. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and will not accept any more. Now, by default, your users have multiple ways to check voicemail, right? They're going to get that email notification, so they can listen to it that way. But that doesn't manage the voicemail box, right? They can just, oh, I listened to it, I called the customer back. But they can also call in over the phone, right? So listen to voicemail messages over the phone. They can delete that way, right? When they're on the phone listening to voicemail messages. They can also check their voicemail messages via the user portal and delete the messages there. If you have staff members who don't do that, and you get tired of getting, customers complaining about voicemail boxes being full, then you might want to do this one here, which is delete the voicemail message after the notification has been sent out. So call comes in, someone leaves a voicemail, system sends out that email with the information and the MP3 attachment, and then it will delete the voicemail from the system. So that means your staff member can only ever get their voicemails via email, right? They're not going to be able to call in and listen to it over the phone. They're not going to be able to see it in their user portal. So if for some reason they're not getting emails, it's possible they might lose voicemail messages. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. When you first set it up, it looks like this, right? You have to tell the system which devices you want to use. When you uncheck it, then you have these sliders to work with, right? So when you first enable and uncheck, it looks like this, right? So just like groups, you have timestamps, right? You can adjust this one. You can click distribute. You can click and drag and change the order, etc. Now, again, if this user is in a group, calls from the group, ignore this feature completely. So be aware of that. Faxbox, users can have their own faxbox if you want them to. I recommend making use of a phone number if you do so that way this person can send and receive faxes without issue. You do have the option to use an extension number. If you do that, this person can only ever receive an inbound fax. They're not going to be able to have fax out because the system will try to use their extension number for their fax box as the outbound caller ID, and that will fail. Also, by having an extension number, you might be restricting their ability to accept faxes, right? Like many electronic fax services may not allow or have the ability to send faxes to an extension number, or they might charge their subscriber extra for that feature. Even for an analog fax machine, you'd have to have that person who's faxing you, know the extension number and knows how their fax machine deals with that, right? Whether that's them listening in and then hitting the extension number and then clicking send fax, or if their fax machine allows them to program in extra characters and digits after the phone number. Conference Bridge, you can enable conferencing on a user. And then the only thing you would need to do then is create a PIN number for them and then save changes. The enable video conferencing, that would be for your staff only, right? Anyone outside your organization would not be able to make use of it. But then you would click on save changes. Now, your staff members can adjust their PIN numbers for the conferencing under the user portal. Call forwarding, you have off, on, and failover mode. Failover mode is something that you as an admin would have to set up. And what that is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered, right, turns red, and a call comes into the user at that time, under failover mode, the system will automatically forward the calls to the phone number you designate. Now, on this user, that probably doesn't even make sense because he's got two devices, one of them being a cell phone, right? So there's probably no need to have failover mode here. But if you only had the one VoIP device, then failover mode would make sense. Now, your users can turn forwarding off or on their own via the user portal, or even directly from their VoIP phone using feature codes. But no matter what, the phone number you enter, right, should be +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Customized call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this, right? So nothing's actually being recorded because you need to tell the system what kind of calls you want recorded, right? Inbound internal, that's just a coworker call, right? Coworker Bob called Aaron, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called Aaron, right? Outbound internal means Aaron called coworker Bob, right? And then outbound external means Bob called customer Mary. Now, every account includes at least some level of storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just signed up, check the pricing page. It should be outlined there. If you're on an older account, then you'd want to check with our account services. If you record all calls and you have heavy call volume, you may want to talk to our account services team about AWS integration. That allows you to link your Dash account with an AWS account of your own. Right? So you'd have to have an AWS account either already or sign up for one. So then you could store your call recordings on AWS, where at higher volumes, that's going to be more cost effective for you. Music on hold, you can have your users have their own hold music. You would just enable it. You would upload an mp3.wave.ogg file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Click the up arrow icon and click Save Changes. Do not disturb. If you enable this, that means this user is not accepting calls, right? So calls to them go to voicemail. If they're in a group, they wouldn't be offered calls, right? So their phone wouldn't ring. Also, if they're in a queue, right, they would not be getting offered calls, even if they mark themselves as ready. And then hot desking is a VoIP phone feature, typically for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. You would click enable, and then you would make a hot desk ID for them, a 4-digit one. Up to you if you want to include a PIN number or not. And then you would click Save Changes. So Aaron comes in the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone and dials *11. That enables hot desking on his phone. Calls to him will now be sent to the phone he's sitting at for the rest of the day. End of his day, he picks up the phone again, hits *12, and that turns off hot desking. Next time he comes in the office, someone's already at desk number 2. He says, all right, good morning. He sits down at desk number 7. Same thing. Picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 7. Voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. When they look like this, where there's entry here under the user column, that means that's the user-created voicemail box, right? Created at the same time as the user. Otherwise, up here at the top, you can create a voicemail box on your own, give it a name, give it a voicemail box number and a PIN number, click on Create Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the wrench. So this allows you to review the information so you can call in, right? If you need to call in on that voicemail box, now you know the voicemail box number and the PIN number. If you go to Advanced Reading Media, actually, let's go to this one then. Yeah. All right. So when you have something in a media file, right, that's your normal default voicemail greeting message, right? Temporary, this would be if you put something in place here for your out of office or vacation voicemail message, right? So it would supersede the media file, right? You can leave this in place, select something here, and the temporary file would play. And then you would set it back to none, so that way the media file would play. You can obviously upload your own file. Again, find the file .wav, .mp3, .ogg recorded in mono. Now the recipients option, for your user voicemail boxes, they already have one built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. For any voicemail box you create manually, right, you do want to add a recipient here, enter the email address. Even for your user voicemail boxes, right, you can add additional people here. Keep clicking add if you want to keep adding email addresses, and then once you're done, click on Save Changes. Options. Once a voicemail box has a media file in place and recipients in place, click on Already Set Up. And then here, you'd want to make sure attachments to email is enabled. And maybe you want to do the delete after notification. And then click on Save Changes. Advanced routing. This is for direct inward system access, or DISA. DISA allows you to call into your system from your cell phone, log in over the phone, and then make an outbound call, right? Now, when you make that outbound call, instead of your cell phone number showing up, it's your main number. Now, by default for new signups, this feature is not enabled right away. This is something you'd have to talk to our account services team about. Once they enable that on your account, you would come here and click to enable. It would automatically assign a PIN number to you. Now, when you have just a PIN number, you would then need to set up DISA as a menu option, right? This would be an advanced call flow. So like you can say, hey, menu option 9 is DISA, right? So when you press 9, then you're prompted to enter the PIN number, you'll hear dial tone. That is not recommended setup because someone might hit the DISA option by accident, right? Even if you don't mention it in the greeting, some people, right? There's a subset of people who will take that as a challenge and try to figure out the PIN number, and then they can then make calls on your account. So the suggestion here is click here to add an extension number. Make it an extension number that's not part of your normal sequence. Click Save Changes. So now you can dial into your main number or auto attendant number, right? When you hear the main greeting, you enter the extension number that by rights only you or your staff should know about. And then you'll be prompted to enter the PIN number. Then you'll hear a dial tone, right? Then you enter area code and phone number and make an outbound call. Now I disable this because I don't want other people to access this feature. Right, and again, that caller ID that shows up when you make that outbound call, right, it's this phone number that you selected under your caller ID. Now, one way to keep track of the calls on your system would be via your call logs. Right, here you see I've got these green arrows to the right. That's an inbound call came into the system. These are mostly short, so I don't know that they actually reached anyone. Now I could download this as a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you could probably get some more information. You know, this week or this month. I'm going to scroll down a bit here. And so you see this call came here and went to this device, right? So this tells me it went to a VoIP phone. Normal clearing tells me the call ended normally, right? So that means the system, you know, people hung up. Nothing unusual happened. Let's see. So here, a yellow arrow to left is an outbound call. And this actually looks like it might be the second leg of a call. Right, here you see another call, and this one to a particular soft phone. Now, the little fire hydrant icon here, right, this creates an email for you that goes to support@virtualpbx.com. It only includes the technical details of the call. So in the body of that email, you should write in why you're sending it in, right? Like, I didn't hear audio, or my phone didn't actually ring, or what have you. Under custom, you can change the date range, right? So you can like do the month of October and filter, right? You can then download the file. So if you need to keep your call log information for compliance reasons, I would suggest you do that every month. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. Our engineers can go back up to a total of 18 months, but after that, the data is not available, right? It's completely gone. And that's something we would have to escalate for you. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these, but these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone, right? Like keyboard shortcuts. Now, this information is also a web page on our support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has this information as well as little help icons information as well. All right, that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. Blacklist allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching you. So you start over here on the right, hit on Edit Blacklists. You click Add to create a new blacklist. I'm just going to click on an existing one here. Right, so then you give it a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right, and that just means if a call comes in and does not have valid caller ID and you turn this on, we're blocking them from reaching your system. Right, if you leave it off, that means they're going to come through. Beyond that, you would click here to click on add number. Then you put in +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, no dashes, no parentheses. Right? You keep clicking add for each phone number you want to add until you're done. Once you are done, you click on save. You would then go back to settings, and you make sure your lists are on the right-hand side under selected, and then you click update. Right? So now every phone number on these 3 lists, when they try to call into my system, they get a busy tone, right? They're not getting through. Now, I want to go back real quick to the call logs. Right, so you see here, I have this call here from Citibank, and it says call rejected. Now, in this case, right, this context is actually inaccurate because this phone number is on one of my blacklists. Right? I added that at the end of last week. So that's how I know, oh, okay, they tried, right, but they didn't actually get through to anybody. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager. You can get to any of your fax boxes on the account. Right, this is my inbound fax tab, so I haven't had any in the last 30 days. I can click on my outbound fax tab, and I can see results here. I can see that we had a successful fax get sent out. If you see a failure here, that means we had a problem communicating with the other phone number. Usually when you mouse over where it says failure, you get some information like user busy, right? So the line was busy when we tried to fax out. The system automatically retries faxes 3 times before it would show up as a failure here. You can also download the file if you need to. You see the date and the time. The email to fax logs will show you all the failed attempts, essentially. Now, these entries are where our system had a problem processing the request, right? We didn't even try to reach out to the other phone number. And if you click on the little eyeball icon here to the far right, this is what you would want to check, right? This errors section, no valid attachment, right? Now, this could be they didn't include any attachment at all, right? They forgot, or they tried to send a JPEG or docx file versus a PDF or TIFF, which is what is accepted. Number manager, this takes you back to your spare numbers. Reports will open up a new tab and take you to the advanced reporting feature. That's a plan-specific feature. Allows you to create your own reports. Basically take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. If you're interested in learning more about this, I would recommend go to under our YouTube channel and do a search under videos for the advanced reporting demo. That'll give you an idea of what can be done. The voicemail tab takes you to your voicemail manager, so you can get to any voicemail box on the account. You can see their voicemail messages, right? So as an admin, when you click on the box, right, you can move a message to a voicemail box as well as change its status, right? So if this voicemail box was full, right, I could choose to have messages deleted, right? But you see the date and the time, the phone numbers involved. You can play back the message, you can download the message. All right, ACD queues. ACD stands for automatic call distribution. Oops, did not click on the right thing, obviously. This is a call center feature. There are 2 kinds of queues that we have available. These are referred to as our standard queues. We also have ACD Queues Pro. Accounts can only have one or the other, right? You can't have both. So I can only show you one. However, on our YouTube channel, we have an ACD Queues Pro demo that you can view and get an idea of what the differences are. The queues are an upgrade off of existing plans. It's possible you may need to change plans, right? Upgrade plans, and then you have an upgrade fee on top of that for each queue that you have. You definitely want to talk to our account services team if this is something you become interested in, right? Because they can give you the actual pricing and really let you know if it's going to work for your needs. Now, here's where you would click on Add New Queue, right? You give it a name, and then you select either an extension or a phone number. I'm going to quit out of this, and we will just go to an existing queue. Right, so give a name, phone number, and extension. You have the queue routing strategy. This pull down, you can choose from round robin, which will equalize out over time. Most idle, right, who's been waiting the longest. Least calls, which is the least amount of connected queue calls. And then least offers, right? That's a combination of missed and connected calls in the queue. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono. For the queues, I believe you can upload a 5 megabyte file. ACD Queues Pro, you can have multiple media files play. You can also have things like announcer position online or their expected wait time. The queue timeout is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold. Right? So I'm saying they can wait on hold for 40 seconds. The queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold. 0 means there's no limit, right? But I can change that to 4 or 40, no, 4, right? So now I can have 4 people wait on hold. That's on top of callers who are already speaking to my staff members. Now queue timeout if immediately, or timeout immediately if empty, excuse me. If this is enabled, this means that if I have no staff members logged into the queue and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that caller as if they've already hit the queue timeout, right? I.e., they're not waiting on a hold for nobody, right? It's just like, hey, that's a waste of people's time. So escalation call flow after timeout is after that 40 seconds, where am I sending the call, right? So you have a pull down, you select where you want it to go, voicemail boxes, another user, another queue, ring group, back to your main menu, etc. Now, the 0 out to call flow, if you select something in this field, right, from this pull down, you're enabling the ability for your inbound caller to press 0 while they wait on hold. Now, the system doesn't tell them about this, right? That was something you would have to include as part of your hold music. Agent recovery time measured in seconds. Normally we see something anywhere from 0 to 30. And what this is how much time the system waits before it offers an agent a second call from the queue, right? So Bob is on a call, right? The call ends. The system will wait, in this case, 15 seconds before it offers him a second call from the queue. Force away on reject or missed. If you enable this, that means if your staff member misses a call from the queue, the system will automatically mark them away. And it will stay that way until the agent marks themselves ready again. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20 seconds. Queues were originally designed with VoIP phones in mind only. We have since upgraded them to allow the use of cell phones or landlines. One thing I didn't mention earlier, and I probably should have, when calls get to a cell phone or a landline, that's an endpoint. They don't have the ability to transfer a call. Whereas if a call goes to a VoIP phone, right, whether that's a soft phone application, web phone, or physical VoIP phone, they can transfer calls. So that would be a limitation of having someone answering a queue call with a phone. The other thing is you might need to up the ringing timeout for calls going to a cell phone. And then any changes you make, click on Save Changes, or if you're just creating it, click on Create Queue. Once you have queues created, over here on the left, you click on the little members icon. For you just starting out, this list will be nothing. There'll be no one here, right? So you would just click on Manage Members. What this list is showing the people I have assigned to be in or to be available in my queues. They're not necessarily assigned to any specific queue yet, right? But I click on Manage Members. Excuse me. So people on the left, right, not assigned to be in my queues at all. People on my right have been assigned to queues. Now I can click on someone's name and move them. Right. Likewise, I can add people over to the right as well. Now, this action here that I've just done hasn't actually assigned anybody to a queue, right? That just means these are my people available to be in my queues. Once I've put them over here to the right, I click back on the queues icon and I click on a queue. Now, this 0 to 6 right up here, this already tells me I have 6 people assigned to this queue. All right, but we click on Add Agents. Right, so the people on the right, these are people I've already assigned to the queue. These are my other people that are available to add to my queue. Right, and I just click and drag to add people to my queues or remove them. I click on Save Changes. Once you have agents, then you can click Add Managers. Any of your agents can then be a manager for the queue. Right, you just move them over to the right. So now for your staff members who they have to have a VoIP device, or they have to have a device, excuse me, and be assigned to the queues. Right, when they come in, they would click on ACD queues themselves. They click on Begin Session. That logs them into the queue or whatever queues they've been assigned to. Now it starts them off on standard queues as away. That first time logging in or any time they have a change to their devices, right? They want to click on the little phone icon here and they want to make sure they select a specific device, right? It actually initially will default them to select all. That you do not want to keep it that way, right? You want to select a specific phone, click on the little phone icon, and then they can mark themselves as ready. So now I am ready to take calls that come into this queue. Now, if I'm on a call, my bar here turns a dark blue on an inbound queue call. If I'm on an external call, so like I made an outbound call to a customer, or someone dialed my extension number directly, right, then my bar turns yellow. Right, when I mark myself away, like for going to lunch, right, my bar turns red. At the end of my day, I would click end session. And that way I'm no longer getting calls for the queue. Oh, one of the primary advantages of the pro queues is y'all managers will have the ability to eavesdrop on a call or whisper to their staff member or barge in. All right, and I believe that's in that demo on the YouTube channel. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So here I have a 408 rule, right? That's what I called it. I chose this 408 phone number. And I've simply said, whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number, automatically change their outbound caller ID to this phone number. Right, and then I click on Save Changes. The other way you can do it is this one here, where I'm relying on my staff members to dial *550 and then the area code and phone number they're trying to reach out to. And then the system will change their phone number to this 323 phone number. So it looks like it's a local area call to the people that they're calling. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. Doesn't matter what phone they're using, right? You can tell who's on a call or what devices are on a call, right? Or who's available, who's busy, or everything, right? When you have an active inbound call, each call would have a box here showing you who they're speaking to and the phone number involved. If there's any parked calls, right, they would show up here and they would have the parking spot number. Recording Manager, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You would use your dash login information here, and that's where you would view your call recordings. Right? You can listen to them, download them, delete them, etc. If you're making use of AWS storage, I believe it changes the name of this. It still says recording. I forget what it changes it to, but this would then show you the recordings on your AWS page. Webhooks is another plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to speak to our sales team about this. However, this is programming, right? You're linking your Dash account to other software. You would need to basically fill out this form. You would have to have other software to link it to, right? It has to link up with something else. Zapier is the primary example we use. In fact, on our YouTube channel, there's an introduction to Zapier webinar that I would encourage you to watch. So that way it gives you examples of webhooks and how you're linking it to other software. You can also go to the webpage developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. And then lastly, you have the user portal. Every user has their own individual user portal, right? As an admin, you can't get to anyone's user portal, but that's because you get to everything anyway. So this is where your staff members start off on their voicemail tab, right? So they can view their own voicemails, they can listen to them, they can download them, right? They can then change the status so they can get rid of them. Call history tab, they can view their call history, they can adjust the date range and see the calls that they have. Click on filter, so then they can see their call history. I think I might be having an internet issue of some type. Fax tab will only work for users that have their own fax mail or fax box, right? But they can see their fax history. Contact list tab, this shows you everything on your Dash account, right? So you can see everyone's, like your other staff members' names, their extension numbers, any direct phone numbers. As a standard user, right, you can't change this. This is a view only kind of field. The conference tab, this is over here on the right. This is where your users would adjust their moderator and participant PIN numbers. They can choose to have people join muted or deafened, as well as play entry and exit tones. Right? Then they would click save. When they're in a conference, the plus icon lets you invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, when you're in a conference, right, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person if necessary. And then the settings and devices tab. This is where your staff members would enable call forwarding on their own. Put a check mark here. Choose +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes of parentheses. Click save, and now calls would then forward to that phone number. Now, if the user already has this phone number as a device on their user, then they don't need to make use of call forwarding, right? And then they see the status of their devices. And that is everything. Looks like we ran a little bit over today, so I do apologize for that. It's had some slow load times. But we will be back here again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Again, we record these trainings, so you can come back and view this at any time. Beyond that, though, I thank you for your time today and have a wonderful day. And for those of you who observe